Welcome to Mehl's Mountain Garage. If this is your first time here, I hope you enjoy the video. Please check out some of the other videos. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. This time around, by request, I'm going to rebuild the drive clutch of a clubcar golf cart. You have two parts of your clutch. You have a drive clutch and a driven clutch. The drive clutch is attached to the engine on the crankshaft, whilst the driven clutch is attached to the transaxle. I'll make a separate video for the driven clutch because it can be a pain with the spring, but we're going to do the drive clutch this time around. So follow me along. The clutch we're rebuilding is out of my 2002 Club Car Turf 2 carry-on. The engine is out to get rebuilt, so the clutch is already available to me and on the bench. I do have the crankshaft out of the engine since it's getting rebuilt, so I can show you how you would remove the drive clutch off of the engine. Since my engine's already a part for rebuild, crankshaft's out of the engine. This actually helps illustrate what's going on. This crankshaft is a tapered snout crankshaft. It does not have a straight snout with a key cut in it, like a 3/4 inch diameter or 1 inch, like a go-kart or a mini bike or something of that sort, but it's tapered. Oftentimes you'll find small generators with the same sort of taper. Now, it's pretty important that you don't jack this up when you're taking it apart. How this drive clutch is attached to the crankshaft is with a long bolt. This is a left-hand thread bolt. So don't go in there with your impact gun or whatever and try and do your normal counterclockwise to loosen it, because you're just going to run it tighter and you're going to snap the bolt off. So you're going to want to run clockwise, get your bolt out of there, and you can see that this bolt's pretty doggone long. I mean, it runs all the way through the clutch. Bolts at about 5 5/8 of an inch long for us in the US. Now, to get it off, you're going to need a tool, or you're going to need to make a tool. Amazon sells clutch removers, so does Buggy's Gone Wild, and even Club Car you can get it. I made my own. I found myself a bolt that was a fine thread bolt that fits the thread and the pitch of the clutch. As you can see, hopefully, there are threads in there. And they're not the threads that this bolt is attached to. As you can see, it pushes clean through. I also took a long bolt that had a shaft diameter that's pretty close to that and just barely clears in there, and clean the end of it up. I cut the head off, clean the end of it up, and it is, I think, 4 1/8 inch long. And you drop your pin or your tool into there and your bolt, and you would tighten this up. Now, if it's on the engine, which possibly it is, you're going to want to keep this from spinning. You may need a strap wrench or a buddy with some big meat hooks to hold on to it. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're tightening it up on the clutch, and you are using the pin as a press against the crankshaft snout. And then what ends up happening is, as you tighten it up, boom, it'll push it off. Now this is already apart, so it came a lot easier than I think you're going to find when you're messing around with a clutch that's been on your crankshaft for 20 years. Then pull your bolt out, drop your pin out, save your tool, or save, like I did, save the tools that you made for another time. There's the clutch. And this is what you would see sticking out of the engine. Just that bit right there. And you can notice the taper on the crankshaft. With your drive clutch off, it also has 3 threaded holes in the top part here. Now, sometimes they've got like red rubber plugs, kind of akin to the drywall lags, anchors that you would have. I just popped them out, but they are threaded. You could use a 3-jaw puller put it this way, if this doesn't release, which like this, and pop apart, you would use a 3-jaw puller like you would use for a steering wheel, or I'm sorry, like a 3-bolt puller, not a jaw puller, but a bolt puller, where you put the bolts in and have a pin right there, and that's how you would get that apart. This, fortunately, kind of just popped apart. There is our hat. Look at all that corrosion and metal and shininess going on in there. We have a washer, like a thrust washer. That thrust washer sits in on the weights. This is retained with the snap ring. You're going to want to get some snap ring pliers if you have them. You could use 2 picks or awls if you had a second set of hands. I have snap ring pliers. There is just a tiny bit of spring pressure. There's a snap ring. That item's removed with all its poop in it. We have a spring. Be careful here. There's a nylon, I guess, stop so it doesn't compress too much. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but you definitely don't want to lose that. And on the spring, there appears to be like another thrust surface. And the reason I say that is because the bit here that the belt would ride on when it's in the valley of the clutch has got a sealed bearing. That bearing sounds pretty good. It's got a little bit of noise, but I'll clean her up. So with the bearing, the spring, thrust surface out of the way, snap ring, what you're left with is the inner portion of the clutch that has got the generator pulley attached to it. I'll remove this pulley and put all this in the solvent tank, get these parts cleaned up, and we will then in turn take the weights and pins and rubber blocks off. We'll take the generator pulley off. Save your bolts and your hardware. Maybe we won't take it off. Get that off without bending her up. You can get in there and clean all your crap out of there. We'll put that in the solvent tank. We are going to put this in the solvent tank. If we had a new seal, I'd put a new seal in there, but I am not putting new seals in it as I don't have them. I wanted to do this video as instructional to help you all out in rebuilding your clutch if you get a new weight kit. That will pull our clutch out. Now it's in there pretty good, huh? We'll get a bar or a screwdriver. See if we can give her a tweak. Use the weight as a lever. And by that I mean right here. And it's removed. Now there's a washer on either side, so definitely don't want to lose those. Rinse and repeat for the rest. If you've got a rebuild kit, probably also have these rubber isolators. Those rubber isolators are just held on with that bolt, and there's a rubber clip. You can see it is bent, possibly to spring load it and help keep this snug in there so it doesn't chatter. Definitely don't want to lose that. Do yourself a favor and take some photos of everything as you're pulling it apart, or reference this video. And again, rinse and repeat. You can pull everything apart. Now, once you have everything apart and you're ready to pull your weights apart, you can see there's a washer on either side. These are a plastic washer. This pin and weight come apart. And there's also a spring washer right inside. So you definitely don't want to lose that. And you can see how these guys lock together. If anything, you can see the shining and wear pattern, so it'll help you reassemble it. If you're getting a new weight kit because this surface is worn and worn into the thrust bearing like this is really the reason you'd be rebuilding this drive clutch. You would pull that apart. There is a bushing in there. Sometimes that bushing will wear out and these will have a whole lot of slop. This has a little bit of slop, but it's not terrible. There's your spring washer. That pin comes out of that. This also has a bushing inside. Again, if you're rebuilding this, you'd have all new parts. I'm not rebuilding this particular clutch, but I am going to clean it up. By rebuild, I'm not replacing any parts. I'm just cleaning all the spoods out of it. I'm going to flip my thrust washer. I do have another set of weights here from another clutch that I've rebuilt. And I'm going to measure my tips, and whichever one's in better shape is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to clean all this up and we'll slap it back together. The clutch has been cleaned in my solvent tank, as clean as it's going to get. I could have put it in my blast cabinet, but I'm not rebuilding it with new counterweights and springs like some of you may be. We're just cleaning it up and make a video to show how to do it. Again, if you were doing it with new parts, there'd be a seal, and there is a scarf, a Teflon scarf ring in there, and another one down here. Though mine, I'm not replacing them. And to do your weights, these are all cleaned up. And this is why you would want to replace them. You may or may not be able to see that wear and the wear on the sides from the spring washers. But I'm going to send it. Just try and locate it somewhere different. You don't want to grease these all up. It's a dry part, a dry fit. Some guys use dry moly lube. But any lube you put in here is going to attract dirt and grease, and everything will stop spinning freely. You have your pin, your spring washer, Teflon washers on the side. Wrong part. Take the bottom part of your clutch. Get your other spring washer. I'm going to flip these rubbers because they do have some wear. The wear was towards the outer diameter. I'm going to flip them around 180 degrees. When you put your hardware in, don't kill it because it's only aluminum. You strip this thing out, you're beat because it's 600 bucks. Again, these guys go in there dry. You can see our movement. The bolts and washers are what hold the roll pin in. Rinse and repeat. All the counterweights are installed. Make sure everything moves freely. Again, it's supposed to be a dry assembly. You put grease and lube. Some guys on Buggy's Going Wild and whatnot claim they put WD-40 in there because they ford a lot of water in their stuff. We're not doing that. This, if you recall, the starter pulley had a little bit of difficulty getting it off, so I'm just gonna kiss the aluminum with some anti-seize so it doesn't seize back up, but just a hair. Don't paint yourself into the Tin Man. With all your parts cleaned, bearings cleaned up, this surface is cleaned up where the belt rides. If you got a new one, that's great. If not, and you're using the old one like I am, just clean it up. Make sure there's no burrs and spooge on it to tear up your $50 belt. For your spring, your plastic washer, make sure your scarf rings aren't sticking out so you don't tear them up reinstalling them. You got movement. Take your thrust bearing. I'm reusing my old thrust bearing. There's a groove worn. These are hardened both sides. They do sell these new. I'm just going to flip it, give myself a new thrust surface. Ensure your rubber vibration isolators and they keep this outer part of the clutch located are installed correctly into these grooves. And then you just turn it around so your keyway lines up. That's it, your clutch is done. When you go to install it back on your engine, again, it's a tapered shaft on the crankshaft. There is no need to clock it anyway, it'll just slide on. Do yourself a favor and clean it all up. Put your remember it's a left-handed thread bolt. Tighten it down to spec. Simple. That wraps up the video. This was a requested video on how to rebuild a drive clutch on a club car. So I hope it helped you out and I hope it helps out other people. I'll put the schematic for everything that I've done right from a club car manual right here. If you didn't take a picture, you don't remember, this will help. I do have other videos of me working on golf carts, primarily club cars. We've got a fleet of them here on the mountain. I'm currently rebuilding a FE 350 out of this 02 carryall, so it's a larger engine. Hit one of the tags or hit my playlist. I do have me doing an FE 290. Not terribly hard and save you a lot of money. Thank you for supporting the channel. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, smash them notifications, check out some of my other videos. Till next time, have a good New Year, Merry Christmas.